Donald Trump has fired 4 inspectors general in the spring alone. And this is an issue because these are supposed to be government watchdogs who hold people in positions of power accountable if there is any indication of wrongdoing. Now, this particular inspector general was actually investigating Secretary of State Mike Pompeo for misuse of government funds. And I want to give you some of those details in just a moment. Now, Inspector General Steve A. Linick, who leads hundreds of employees in investigating fraud and waste at the State Department, had begun an inquiry into Pompeo's possible misuse of a political appointee to perform personal tasks for him and his wife. So this seems to be an issue with the Trump administration. As you guys can remember, early on in Trump's term, there were other federal employees who were fired for misusing government funds. And so I want to give you some of the details of how this money was spent. So in the summer, members of Congress began examining a whistleblower complaint accusing Pompeo of asking diplomatic security agents to run errands like picking up restaurant takeout meals and retrieving the family dog. Sherman, from a groomer, okay? And then there's the issue with how he travels with his wife on the taxpayer dime. Many of these trips are abroad. Many of these trips are to a state where he plans on possibly running for Senate. So in January of 2019, Pompeo's wife, for instance, went with him on an 8-day journey across the Middle East, which raised questions among some officials because most State Department employees, including those supporting the trip, were working without pay during a partial government shutdown. Mrs. Pompeo had also flown with her husband on multiple trips to Switzerland and Italy, which included a visit to the secretary's ancestral home region. And then in October, a Democratic senator called for a special counsel to investigate his use of State Department aircraft and funds for frequent visits to Kansas, where he was reported to be considering a Senate run. Now, Cenk, before you respond to all of this, I want to give you some of Donald Trump's response to these allegations that, the inspector general was fired because of retaliation due to the investigation he had launched against Mike Pompeo.
Secretary Pompeo was reportedly under investigation both for having staffers do personal errands like walking his dog and picking up his dry cleaning, and concerns that he may have subverted the will of Congress with Saudi deals with Saudi arms deals. Are you concerned that he may have made this request to avoid an investigation?
Well, I don't know anything about it. I heard about it at the same time maybe you heard about it. I don't know anything about it. I mean, you mean he's under investigation because he had somebody walk his dog from the government? I don't know. Doesn't sound, I don't think it sounds like that important. I mean, you have a man that's supposed to be, and he's a brilliant guy, #1 at West Point, #1 at Harvard, I believe, Harvard Law School or close. And the Democrats and the fake news media, they're interested in a man who's walking their dog, and maybe he's busy, and maybe he's negotiating with Kim Jong-un, okay, about nuclear weapons, so that he'd say, please, could you walk my dog? Do you mind walking my dog? I'm talking to Kim Jong-un, or I'm talking to President Xi. Now, I don't know anything about the investigation, but
there's a big wild card here in terms of why the Inspector General might have been investigating Pompeo. We're going to get to that in a minute. But within the range of charges here, somewhat shockingly, I will agree with Donald Trump. And you know, the media does sometimes underplay how crazy Donald Trump is. They never talk about the 25th Amendment. They think it's illegitimate, et cetera. And they talk about his strategies when he's an idiot, et cetera. But sometimes they overplay certain things, like, oh, an unhinged speech about dogs and dishes and stuff. No, I don't think so. I think he was saying, look, man, walking the dog is not that big a deal. Now, did he get it right? Of course not. It's not even about walking the dog. It's picking him up from the groomer. And it's so the thing that I find least problematic is the one that seems most elitist and annoying. Go pick up my dog from the groomer. Don't ask career people whose job it is not to do that. If you're at a company and you got an assistant and that's part of their job, that's life and that's no problem, right? But if you're a government official, don't use Secret Service or whoever else to pick up Sherman, your dog, from the grooming place. So it's wrong, But would I launch an investigation on it? No, I wouldn't care, honestly. I wouldn't care enough to launch an investigation on it. So on the other hand, as you get closer to official actions and things that matter, then wait a minute. Like, so the worst of it is going to Kansas, where if he doesn't run for Senate this time, he certainly might later. But this is what he's thinking about. And when he went on the trip to Kansas, he met with Charles Koch. He also did an appearance with Ivanka Trump. The Ivanka Trump appearance is obviously to get his name recognition and positive branding for conservatives up in Kansas. That's already egregious enough, but it's a Trump connected to the White House. Maybe you make an excuse. But Charles Koch, you're going to meet with a donor who's financed your entire career and will finance your Senate run. Why are United States taxpayers paying for that? That is totally outrageous. And by the way, illegal. It's a violation of the Hatch Act. So that's your range for not that important to really important.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I mean, I think that the reporter referenced, among all of the accusations against Pompeo, the weakest accusation. And when it comes to taxpayer money, you got to keep in mind, like, we're being told right now as average citizens that we can't increase the deficit to help Americans who have lost their jobs during the pandemic. But you can't make that argument and simultaneously pretend as though Pompeo misusing taxpayer money to go on these like trips with his wife is totally fine. It's not fine. And we would want any other government official to be held accountable for misusing that money. But there is one other wrinkle to this story that I want to share with you, because it's not all about the use of or the misuse of government funds. It turns out that Mike Pompeo was also being investigated for fast-tracking arms sales to Saudi Arabia. So let me give you those details. Representative Elliot Engel said during a CNN interview, quote, I have learned that there may be another reason for Mr. Linick's firing. His office was investigating, at my request, Trump's phony declaration of an emergency so he could send weapons to Saudi Arabia. We don't have the full picture yet, but it's troubling that Secretary Pompeo wanted Mr. Linick pushed out before this work could be completed. And by the way, Pompeo did confirm today that he did, in fact, urge Donald Trump to fire Linick. But he says that he was unaware that he was facing any type of investigation, which you can go ahead and believe that if you want. But I got a bridge to sell you. Also, Mike Pompeo said at the time when he fast-tracked these weapons sales, so this was last year, these sales will support our allies, enhance Middle East stability, and help these nations to deter and defend themselves from the Islamic Republic of Iran. And, this is a huge issue. So if this is really what the investigation was about, and if the inspector general was fired in retaliation for conducting this investigation, it's a huge problem.
Yeah. Pompeo hadn't spoken to the inspector general yet, but it seems almost perfectly clear that he knew that the inspector general was looking forward to talking to him about this. It's totally unbelievable that, oh, golly gee, was he investigating me over a series of really important allegations, and I happened to fire him right before he talked to me and got me on the record? Oh, well, imagine my surprise. Okay, no, that's total nonsense. Okay, so now in terms of this allegation, this is super serious. Now, by the way, the inspector general could look at this and go, no, he didn't do anything wrong. Because one of the questions here, and a really important one, is, did they do something that Congress prohibited? So if the inspector general finds out that they didn't, then okay, then we sold arms to Saudi Arabia. I don't think policy-wise we should have, but that's why we have elections, and Trump was very clear that he would sell arms to people like Saudi Arabia, then it would be a non-issue completely. But if it turns out they were breaking the law and in contravention of something that Congress had dictated, well, then Pompeo would be in a lot of trouble, and this would be the most important allegation that the inspector general was looking into.
Yeah, definitely. And so a reporter asked Trump about it during a roundtable discussion today.
Congress passed a law to restrict sales to Saudi Arabia over certain arms out of concern over their use in the Yemeni crisis. So the question is whether Secretary Pompeo tried to subvert the deal with actions that he may have taken on.
I don't think so. I mean, I think that when somebody pays us a fortune for, arms, we should get the deal done. I will tell you that. I don't know what you're talking about.
Even if it results in human rights abuses, that was Congress's concern with these
Human rights
abuses.
I don't know. That I don't know. I mean, you tell me something that I never heard of. Now you're talking about human rights abuses. You'll figure something out, I'm sure.
Now, remember, Saudi Arabia, the Saudi crown prince, was the one who ordered the murder and dismemberment of Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi. So to say that, oh, well, yeah, we just want to sell weapons to countries that are friendly. They killed a U.S. resident. And we're okay with that? I guess we are. He also said, if they want to buy our fighter jets and if they want to give us billions and billions of dollars and they have other alternatives, including China and Russia and others, I think we should make it as easy as possible for them. And we should take the jobs and take the money because it's billions of dollars.
Okay, so there's a couple of different issues here. Number one, should we just sell any arms to anybody who wants it that's quote unquote friendly to us? No. It totally depends on the circumstances. So, for example, Turkey bought weapons from us historically, has bought almost all their weapons from us because they've been a strong NATO ally. But recently they bought weapon systems from Russia, which then compromises some of our weapon systems. So that's a giant issue. You don't solve that by going, Turkey friendly, it's okay, sell them whatever they want. No, it depends on the context, it depends on the situation. And in this case, the more important point is Congress has weighed in and said you are not allowed to do this. So you don't get to just break the law and go, well, whatever, man. They wanted it. I wanted to sell it, so I just did. That's not how this country works. That's not how democracy works. We have three equal branches of government. Again, Trump doesn't care about any of that. But that's why you have inspector generals. So they can investigate that and find out if you broke the law or not.
I think a valid point coming from defenders of the Trump administration, specifically people who want to defend Trump's decision to fire inspectors general. They say, look, it's the president and the president can decide who he hires, who he fires. He's within his right to fire these people. And that's actually true. But what I find incredible is that these are supposed to be independent watchdogs who hold the White House, the executive branch, accountable. Isn't it a huge flaw when the White House has the right to fire the very people who are supposed to be independently investigating them?
Yeah, well, so there's a very important exception to that. You can fire inspectors general overall whenever you want, since you run the executive branch if you're the president. But if they're in the middle of finding out something illegal you did, then other laws kick in. And so as this scandal, I mean, everything's a scandal with Trump administration, but this, under a normal administration, this would be a giant, giant scandal, probably the largest of their entire administration. You're doing a purge of all the inspectors general that are holding your administration accountable. That's a massive Watergate-like scandal. And so we will hopefully, if the Democrats can take action here, and they have begun to, and by the way, I'm about to give you guys credit for that, and now you'll see why. But if they do, then we will find out, wait, was there a specific law broken in even firing the inspectors general in the middle of an investigation where they might unearth your illegal activity?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like there's been quite a bit of criminality in the Trump administration. And even in cases where Democrats did try to hold him accountable, including the whole quid pro quo issue with Ukraine, he seems to get away with everything. So me, these go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, Anna. He does, but only because the Republican senators back him. As long as they do in our system of government, you just cannot remove a president. You just can't without 2/3 of the Senate agreeing. So then he feels like there is no law. But one piece of realpolitik that's coming much later than I anticipated, but has finally begun to arrive, as you'll see later in today's news, is that Republican senators are now in general elections. They're past their primaries. And for whoever is up for re-election, all of a sudden they are being much harsher even including this issue, Chuck Grassley, Susan Collins, et cetera, against Trump, because now they got poll numbers showing if you back Trump, and certainly you do it without question, you're going to lose. You're going to lose your Senate run. So all of a sudden they're going, well, I think we need to do some accountability here. So we might have to do an investigation of the Trump administration. Those are Republican senators. So that check and balance in an honest government would have come 3 years ago. But it is now finally arriving with like 6 months left to go in his term / election. But I want to explain. Yeah, go ahead.
I got to respond to that. Like, thank God, because Susan Collins is the type of Republican politician who doesn't just talk the talk, she walks the walk. So if she's publicly criticizing Trump's decisions, she's definitely going to do something about it and hold him accountable, right?
It took me a second and a half on your sarcasm. Okay, but even the talk of it is, like, unfortunately leagues above what it was even a couple of months ago. But last thing here, guys, on this. The reason I want to give you guys credit for this story, the Saudi part of the story even breaking, is, and this chain of events is absolutely true and is how politics works. So we created Justice Democrats. You guys funded it. They won 4 huge seats, new seats. They got 7, now soon to be 8 overall. They gained some degree of power and leverage. So when Justice Democrat Jamal Bowman started running against Eliot Engel, it created huge pressure for Eliot Engel in the House, who's among Democratic leadership and leads a committee, to then go, oh yeah, I'll show you how tough I am and how progressive I am. Eliot Engel used to support the warmongering against Iran. He gets a progressive primary opponent from Justice Democrats. All of a sudden he's like, oh, wait a minute, we're selling weapons to the Saudis so they could fight Iran. I'm against that. I'm a progressive. All of a sudden, I'm not as concerned about, I don't want to do warmongering on Iran. We got to keep the Saudis in check. Really, after an entire career of doing the opposite. So political pressure works. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And by the way, go support Jamal Bowman, because he's the one that's actually causing all of this. But hey, Eliot Engel doing the right thing at the end, I'll always take it. So I'll give him credit for that. Thank you for at least following up on this. That's how we found out about the Saudis angle on Pompeo. But overall, it's not that much of an exaggeration at all to say that you guys started that chain of events that led to that accountability.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.